Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Today the question that we are discussing, I'm presenting on, is what is beyond order? What is beyond order? Jordan Peterson is coming up with this new book, Beyond Order. We've been studying Jordan Peterson for 4 years. We're very familiar with maps of meaning, 12 rules of life. And we were doing a meetup on maps of meaning, and I realized I myself and most people that I know have not grasped a crucial concept that needs to be grasped in order to understand Jordan Peterson's thought. So this meetup is about that. So what is beyond order? Most people's immediate answer is chaos. But there are actually 3 other elements that are beyond order. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. 2 of the elements people will be able to guess, but the third one is not that clear, and it is mingled with other concepts. To separate that 4th element out and look at it clearly, and then look at all 4 elements together, and then illustrate it with a story is what we're going to do today. So let me bring up the table of contents here. So this is the plan. So what I'm doing right now is the introduction. And we're going to talk about this crucial concept of Uroboros. It is the most fundamental concept. And all other concepts are kind of built on that. Then we are going to talk about 4 constituent elements of experience, personality, world, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to illustrate it with the story of Horus. This is my diagram of the 4 elements. You will immediately recognize the yin and the yang, that is order and chaos. Many of you who are very familiar with Jordan Peterson's thought will immediately recognize the I in the middle. This is you standing at the edge of order and chaos with 1 foot in order, 1 foot in chaos, and paying attention. That is the symbol of Horus. It is the active element of engaging the world, engaging the new, engaging the unknown, the potential, in order to reorder, to recreate a better order. So that is the I in the middle. But notice the serpent, the Uroboros, around it. Well, actually, it is not around it. All of this is taking place in Uroboros. Okay, so the concept of Uroboros is what we are going to spend considerable time on, because that is the foundational element of Jordan Peterson's entire work in Maps of Meaning, and without which you cannot understand all the other concepts. If you understand the concept of Uroboros well, then you can actually understand the concepts of the Yin-Yang and the I much better. So we're going to spend time looking at Uroboros. And the way I'm going to do it is that I'm indebted to Jordan Peterson for this. This is Jordan Peterson's idea, his presentation. So this is mostly from Maps of Meaning. So I'm going to read out significant paragraphs describing the Uroboros. I've read the chapter a few times, and these selections are various ways of describing this concept. I'm deliberately doing it in 5 different ways, hoping that maybe 1 or 2 of them will speak to each of the persons who's listening. So let's begin. What is Uroboros? It is a totality, a state where everything now distinct resides in union. So it is a concept that refers to everything. It is trying to encompass all of existence and all of consciousness. Everything else that is in Uroboros. It comes out of Uroboros and dissolves back into Uroboros and remains in Uroboros as it functions. So it is the idea of the whole, the totality, a state where being and non-being, beginning and end, matter and energy, spirit and body, consciousness and unconsciousness, femininity and masculinity, night and day remain compounded prior to their discrimination into the separable elements of experience. In this state, all conceivable pairs of opposites and contradictory forces exist together. It constitutes the beginning of things, the fountainhead for everything, and similarly, the resting place and destination point for all. So this is the substrate from which things arise and to which things go. And when they have a certain distinctive form that we know of, they still are part of the Uroboros. So you can call it, it's a concept that unites the concept of existence as such and consciousness as such all together into one. So it's the totality, the whole. In Indian thought, it would be called the Brahman, which is basically everything. Um, let, let me describe it using Jordan Peterson's words in another way. It's the primordial serpent God. The primordial serpent God is endless potential, is whatever comprises of being prior to the emergence of the capacity of experience. This potential has been represented as the self-devouring dragon or snake because this image aptly symbolizes the union of incommensurate opposites. Uroboros is simultaneously representative of two antithetical primordial elements. As a snake, the Uroboros is a creature of the ground, of matter. As a bird, a winged animal, it is a creature of the air, of the sky, of spirit. The Uroboros symbolizes the union of the known associated with spirit and the unknown associated with matter, the explored and the unexplored. Symbolizes the juxtaposition of the masculine principles of security, tyranny, and order with the feminine principles of darkness, dissolution, creativity, and chaos. Furthermore, as a snake, Uroboros has the capacity to shed its skin and to be reborn. Let me proceed. Thus, it also represents the possibility of transformation and stands for the knower who can transform chaos into order and order into chaos. So it includes the knower. So you are part of Uroboros, everything about you. The Uroboros stands for or constitutes everything that is as of yet unencountered prior to its differentiation as a consequence of active exploration and classification. When most people think of order and chaos, order is something that they are conscious of, and chaos is something that they have not yet explored. But it is the way they think of chaos is the known unknown. But what Uroboros also includes is the unknown unknown, things about which you have no clue about. They may be far away, or they may be operative in you without you even having any inkling of it. It is the source of all the information that makes up the determinate world of experience and is simultaneously the birthplace of experiencing subject. The Uroboros is one thing, as everything that has not yet been explored is one thing. It exists everywhere and at all times. So it is eternal. It is completely self-contained, completely self-referential. It feeds, fertilizes, and engulfs itself. It unites the beginning and the end, being and becoming, in the endless circle of its existence. It serves as a symbol for the ground of reality itself. It is the set of all things that are not yet things, the primal origin and the ultimate point of return for every discriminable object and every independent subject. It serves as the progenitor of all we know, all that we don't know, and of the spirit that constitutes our capacity to know and not know. It is the sea of chaos surrounding man's island of knowledge and the source of that knowledge as well. It is all new experience generated by time, which incessantly works to transform the temporary predictable once again into the unknown. The Ouroboros, the primordial matrix, contains in embryonic form everything that can, in principle, possibly be experienced. And the thing that does the experiencing, the great serpent, the matrix, is therefore consciousness, spirit, before it manifests itself, and matter, before it is separated from spirit. The Uroboros is the unified parent of the known, the great father, the explored territory, or the familiar, and the unknown, the great mother, the anomalous information and unpredictable. So this is very interesting. So great father and great mother. So traditionally order and chaos. Those two are the children of Ouroboros. So Ouroboros is the parent of these two. It might be regarded as well as the single androgynous grandparent of the hero, the son of night and day, the mediator between the known and the unknown, whose being constitutes a necessary precondition for the existence of differentiated things. Okay, so that's what Ouroboros is. So let me now, I've tried to describe what it is. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to now relate it to those for the other three things. So you can see on the left-hand side is Jordan Peterson's diagram. The Ouroboros is something that is encompassing. If you want to be precise, actually the body of the Ouroboros includes the internal circles that are there. Those two are part of Ouroboros. So you have the surrounding Ouroboros, then there is the circle that he has of the unknown. Now this is basically the known unknown. Within that, there is the known. This is the known known. And then there is the knower who is extending what is known. Okay, so that is his take on it. I have mapped it differently because I think it is the relationships are in as per the diagram that I have put in, that there is this constant tussle between the known known and the known unknown, which is taking place in the context of within Ouroboros. And then the knower is not completely, is kind of at the boundary, going back and forth between that. It is ability to see. It is has one foot in order and one foot in the unknown. And it is looking and paying attention all the time. So that's kind of a quick overview of it. Now let's go to the next slide. This is about what he calls this. These slides are from Maps of Meaning. I have covered parts of it, like the kind of the detail that is there in the between the unknown and the known. I've just covered that because that detail is not necessary for this presentation. So you can see that that Ouroboros as being the grandparent of the knower, the explorer. So from Ouroboros come two things. One is the unknown, and second is the known. The unknown, what Jordan Peterson rightly calls the Great Mother, it is the feminine, it is the queen, it is the material world, it is the dark water, the unexplored territory, the nature, the night sky, Isis, the womb, the forest, the barbarian lands, anomalous occurrences, the grave. So essentially, if I want one word for it, it's nature. And the one word for the known, the great father, is culture. So that's the king, Apsu, ancestral spirits, the family, the city, the explored territory, culture, day sky, Osiris, the dead, the village, the nation, the predictable, the monument. So these are the two products. So kind of going back to the previous slide. So you have the serpent covering the whole, and then you have the known and unknown coming out of that. Okay, so let me go to the detailed presentation of this. Again, this is from Maps of Meaning. Okay, this is actually very profound in the single diagram. So just like I have the serpent covering the diagram on the right-hand side, what Jordan Peterson has is the square, which is Ouroboros. Now, there is a slight confusion. He uses the term for Ouroboros, he calls it the dragon of chaos. And I find that confusing because the chaos is kind of used alternately for the Great Mother partly and partly for Ouroboros. So I'm using the term Ouroboros consistently to separate that out. So you can see that the entire thing is taking place within Ouroboros. The outer circle is the Great Mother. That is the nature. The next circle is the Great Father, which is the culture. And the archetypical son is the explorer, who is the son of both culture and nature, who is exploring nature in order to enrich the culture. So he's continuously going back and forth between culture and nature. And his hallmark in Egyptian mythology is the eye. So it is his ability of paying attention to anomalies, especially to anomalies, is his core power. Again, if you look at the terms on the left-hand side and right-hand side, the positive and negatives, you can see that the positive of the Great Mother is creation. That is the source of all new creation. The positive term for the Great Father is order. It is creating, order. The positive term for the Son is the hero, person who pays attention, person who encounters, goes out into the forest, slays the dragon, and brings back the gold to the city. Note also that the flip side, the negative side of it, the negative side of the Great Mother is the destruction. All factors of deterioration are parts of nature. Um, the negative part of the Great Father is tyranny, order which is not sensitive to life of things, begins to stifle life, and that is tyranny. The opposite of hero is one who evades, one who refuses to pay attention and goes against the hero for that. So that is the negative part of hero. So this is the classification that Jordan Peterson has. So these are the four elements. You have Ouroboros, you have the Great Mother, you have the Great Father, and you have the archetypical son. So in my diagram, it's the outer ring of the serpent. You have the red of the Great Mother, the yin, and the nature. And then you have the blue of the Great Father, culture. And then you have the attention, ability of paying attention, and the hero in the middle, represented by the eye at the boundary of order and chaos. So let me proceed here. I want to now look at two different aspects of it to elaborate on this idea further. One, I'm going to look at time and space, and then I'm going to look at knowledge. So in time and space, Uroboros is eternal. It is something that predates consciousness. It predates you and predates human beings. It is nature. And yet it is the source. All the consciousness that we have, all subjective experience, is the source of it. It is something that is eternal. It continues to be. At the other extreme, the I that you see in the middle is all about paying attention now. That is the power of transforming, of encountering chaos and transforming it through work in the present into a better order. So it is all about, and the core power there is the power of paying attention, which is the source of all the great things that heroes do. It is a source that actually produces order over time. The red, the nature, the yin, is the potential. Both positive and negative potential lies there. Both growth and decay comes from there. The order is the achieved order. Whatever order has already been achieved. So it is a past. So this is my quick take. So the eternal things, it's not only the Uroboros is not only for in time eternal, but it includes all of space. So something happening on the other side of the galaxy or a galaxy far, far away is included in the Uroboros. But it is not impacting the order or even the potential that you're seeing, and you're certainly not able to see it. So that's an example of something which is in Uroboros, just at a different point in space. Just like it includes all of time, it includes all of space. Let me see. Okay, I think this is a very quick, again, in terms of space, I wanted to connect the space up with the other three. The order is always in it's basically in your habited space, okay, inhabited space. It's your city. So think of order as a walled city. It is always a particular system that you have built, that has been built. So it is delimited in space. The potential, as best as I understand it, it is something that is the known unknown. So it is something which is not there yet, but it is accessible. So the forest surrounding, far lands that you have heard of are all part of the potential. But galaxy far away, that's not yet part of the potential if you don't even know that there are galaxies around. So that's the so there is a limitation of space for the order, a larger limitation for the potential, but still limited by what is within at least your knowledge of the unknown. And the now is actually taking place. It's your acting now. So it's really your ability to pay attention. As that's my take on that. I want to look at it now in terms of knowledge. Okay. Most people think of it as just known and unknown, but order is known. And the element of Great Mother is the known unknown. What Uroboros reminds us is that there is an unknown unknown. Now, the fourth one, it's a very odd way of describing it, but I'm calling it unknown unknown, and let me just explain what I mean by that. It's probably not the best way of describing it. What it is that it is the mind of the scientist. It is the mind of person who is asking questions, who's not satisfied with the current knowledge or the current order, and is relentlessly saying, how can I make this better? What is next? So he's standing in the known, and he's continuously focused on paying attention to the thing that will enable him to convert the unknown into known. So this is not the best way of describing it, but I think the crucial thing is to separate the known and known unknown on one hand from the unknown unknown. The primary value of Uroboros is to say that there is unknown unknown, that there are things that are going to come out from there, which you're going to have, which you're going to deal with both as positive potentials and negative potentials. So now let's go into the story, and this is a way in which I can bring all of these together in a concrete example. And then I'm going to open it up for questions. All right, this is my favorite story in demonstrating mythology from the Jungian perspective and in Jordan Peterson's work, The Story of Horus. So first, I'll just tell it as a story. The kingdom of Egypt was a great kingdom, and Osiris was a great king. He had built this great kingdom through his own efforts, and it was magnificent. But Osiris was getting old and set in his ways, no longer as attentive as he was when he built the empire. He was married to Isis. So Osiris represents order. And the old Osiris now is order without the seeing capability, ability to transform order. Isis was his wife. She represents nature and the potential. She loved him, and he loved her. Osiris had a brother, Seth, who was kind of at the the, coming out, he is, Seth was evil. He wanted to take over the order that Osiris had created. And his mind, which certainly had, was part of the Uroboros for Osiris, he had no clue. He was completely unaware of what Seth was, what his brother was. And Seth attacked Osiris, killed him, chopped him up into little pieces, and strewn all those pieces in the underworld, again part of the Uroboros. Isis was mad. She went to the underworld, found the phallus of Osiris, and impregnated herself. And her son, Horus, was born. Horus was a result of the union between order and chaos, between culture and nature. And he was able to see as a result. He was able to pay attention. He grew up and had a terrible battle with Seth and defeated him, and in the course lost one of his eyes. After he had killed Seth, he recovered the eye. And at that point, most stories would end by Osiris taking over Egypt. But he did something highly unusual. He went back into the underworld, recovered all pieces of Osiris, put them together, gave Osiris the eye that he had lost, his own eye that he had lost, and brought him back to Egypt. And Osiris and Horus ruled Egypt. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? So there are several things. I mean, it's such a beautiful story and such profound ideas contained in it. Number one, no matter how great an order you build, if you are not alive to nature, if you're not paying attention, it will be destroyed. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, you have to watch out for things coming out of the underworld, out of the unknown, which has destructive power, like Seth. Number three, even when the previous order is destroyed, pieces of it can be used to reconstitute the order in the person of Horus in this case. Next one, things born out of understanding of both chaos and order, both nature and culture, have tremendous power of transformation. Not only are they aware of the dangers that come from the underworld and from the destructive potential of nature, but they are able to rebuild the order to better survive in that context. Next one, it is the power of seeing, power of paying attention. That is the incredible power that heroes have. Next one, it is not enough to just create the next version. You have to respect and use all the great lessons from the previous one. Horus went back and brought Osiris. And Osiris and Horus ruling Egypt is a much more powerful combination because it brings along the old order and the responsiveness that will create the new order. So this is a quick look at this crucial idea of Uroboros and how that is the background for the other three elements. I'm going to now stop sharing the screen and take some questions. So folks, if you have questions, you can go ahead and type ! in the chat, and I will go ahead and unmute you. Feel free to ask any question that you have. All right. Go ahead, folks. Who would like to go first? Okay, Laura, go ahead. Okay, so it's going to be Laura, David R, and Sharon. Just a second, let me see if there is a problem. Okay, Laura has a problem. So David, go ahead.
Very interesting, Shrikant. Is this, I'm not familiar with the term Uroboros. Is this a term that you've kind of pulled together or organized? Because I find it resolves some of the conflict, because as I've listened to Jordan Peterson in the past, I felt that he was using a term or a word and assigning different meanings to it depending upon the context at the moment. And it was sometimes a little confusing, and you needed to go back, or at least I needed to go back and listen again, and I could put things properly in the perspective. So I find your definition of Uroboros very helpful in being able to segregate something and more clarification of the meanings so that you can organize your thoughts a little better. So
sure, let me elaborate. Thank you. Great question, David. So I want to say a few things here. Number one, Uroboros is a very old concept. This comes from Egyptian times. It's the idea of snake eating its own tail. It is this eternal circle of kind of production and consumption of eternal rebirth. So it's a very, very old idea. And it's an idea that is used to encompass everything. And this is a critical part of Jordan Peterson's thought. Now, the reason I decided to focus on it is that it's a very interesting story. We started looking at the concept of chaos. And as Dave put it very beautifully, he says, chaos has a bad publicist, because chaos, as Jordan Peterson thinks of it, has both the positive and the negative potential. So the positive, all the good things also come from chaos. And chaos as a word has a negative implication, a negative connotation, which doesn't capture the positive that is there inherent in this concept. So I was looking for other concepts firstly. So concepts like potential, for example, or the unknown, or unconscious, where kind of the attempts of grappling at that. Then I heard the presentation that Roger and Claire and Victor did on these four games that human beings, that people play. I recommend that presentation very highly. It's already on YouTube. And I was blown away by this concept of Uroboros, because what it does is that it provides a substrate. It is it's a much more metaphysical. It actually provides the metaphysics for it. Otherwise, what happens is that your concept of chaos is shaped by your known unknowns. So you would say, oh, this is part of the chaos. But what you're not even have no clue at all that may be there, that is there somewhere in reality. And that you have to account for. So this concept actually does that very well. So I think kind of separating it out, because most people just talk about order and chaos, but to realize that there is something that encompasses both of those things and is much larger than that, I think I think it's a fundamentally good way, right way of looking at this. Next up is going to be Sharon, Kevin, and Laura. Sharon, go ahead.
Yes, by the way, I see chaos as actually an opportunity for growth and creation, and that those are less likely to happen without chaos. Actually, I'm listening to what you're talking about. These concepts are somewhat familiar, and yet I've always had trouble with them. I think I come from a Jewish background, and I'm familiar with the liturgy there. And there's a song there that's sung every Sabbath, Master, Eternal Master.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at the words, and I see this as God, that as at least the conception of God that I've learned. There are phrases like before all of creation was drawn and when it was finished. And it talks about when this our world will be no more, his majesty will still reign. He was, he is, and he will be. It is sort of, these are without beginning, without end. These are just excerpts from it. But it sort of seems to tie in to me. It resonates in that, and I have a lot of difficulty with God, with understanding the concept.
Sure.
But
Let me respond to it, because this is a beautiful point. You're absolutely right. This is the concept of God. Like, for example, in Indian thought, it is the concept of Brahman, which is basically everything, which is everything.
Mhm.
So this concept of Uroboros is that concept, and that's the substrate, and everything happens in it, everything comes from it, and everything goes in it, and everything is part of it. So that is the conception that is there, and I very much prefer the term potential to chaos, because potential captures both the negative and positive possibilities that exist in the unknown. And that's exactly what we are trying to capture. Whereas the word chaos has a negative negative connotation now. Original word chaos actually refers to a great gulf, something that you don't know, and which the original Greek meaning of it or Latin meaning of it is very much value neutral, that there is both possibilities. So I very much prefer the term potential. Next up is going to be Kevin, Laura, Mike, and Jonathan. Kevin.
Yes, sir. Great work. Beautiful diagram. Frank, would you bring that diagram back? I would from, let's see, my background is from Eastern, let's say Chinese or Yin-Yang, also eager to learn Western philosophy. And now let's see, back to the, if you have 4 elements, one and both would be great. That.
Sure.
Yeah, this one is okay too.
This one?
Okay. Let's start here. Here's great too.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. First, let's see, we need to switch mind, empty our mind from Western, right, wrong, positive, negative. The 2 words just now Srinka mentioned is value neutral. When you think about the positive thing, let's achieve something, success. Also, let's success from the right side, right bottom diagram that let's see is order the blue, right? Let's see if you achieve something, you also think about that red circle, a smaller one. That's something you think, but can you achieve again? If you success, you have some, let's see, or negative side you need to think about. The key, people give you award or something achievement, you need to think about that side. Vice versa, same thing. If these people you see you failure, please see the bottom left of dragon on the blue side. It continues. That's even small, but it's big. It could be achieved to your blue side. That's one. Also, another word is unity. This we look for chaos. Like just now, we normally let's see if we love this. We think about chaos is negative. Order is good. We need order, need law. Here you think about this. We also need unity. That's nature exists. Positive, negative. When we judgment, let's see, that's one word, by the way. Our word, language, lack of language, but neutral. All the words like Frank said, chaos originally come from neutral. Another word bring back here, crisis. Let's see, finance crisis. You see, another word, if see original meaning, it's stay neutral. It's not like the crisis, oh, that's bad. I got a finance crisis. It's not. From this in your side, right? If there's a yin exists yang, you see the blue side have a red circle, red side have blue circle. I like the middle. That's Sri Lanka. That's beautiful government middle. You got one foot in blue side, another foot in the red side. That's we make judgment. When we let's say something, let's say you are a good person. Underline, you still think about what's the benefit, bad side. This world coexist. It's both are you consider bad or good. We all exist together and single unit, beautiful.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I mean, this was a fantastic observations. Okay, so one general point I want to make is that Western thought, Chinese thought, and Indian thought are very different from each other. And in this diagram, you can see the strengths and weaknesses of each of them. For example, in Western thought, when you look at, for example, the Egyptian thinking about this, order and chaos, then immediately the image that comes to your mind is that of a walled city, which is the order, and there is outside there is forest and there is danger over there. And so there is the negativeness of this of the red part is there in the thinking itself. I find that in Chinese thought, I don't understand Chinese thought too well, but one thing I know is that the Chinese thought, these elements are beautifully integrated, and they are thought of in an integrated way all the time. So there is a flow between that, and there is an acceptance of life being a flow between order and chaos, between this blue and red, between yin and yang. And that is considered as natural. Okay, so and they have a conception of health. Are things happening healthy, which is a conception of balance of these things, which is like a evaluation of a dynamic. How good is the dynamic between these two? And can you make that dynamic better? And a way of kind of thinking about that, which is extremely powerful. And that is built into the Chinese thought in a very deep way, a way in which it is not built in the Western thought. Now, for Indian thought, this Uroboros is second nature. That's a very deep concept. Just like Sharon was talking about the concept of God, Indian concept of God is that. And more so, I mean, it's difficult to kind of fully make this point, but one of the core principles, so they have the concept of Brahman, which is equivalent to God, equivalent to Uroboros here, which is basically everything that includes existence and consciousness. And there is a concept of Atma, which is you, which you can see as the I in the middle. Okay. So Indians don't have the concept of the red and not don't have, but that's not prominent in Indian thinking, the red and the blue. So remove that from consideration for a moment, where the serpent actually occupies the entire territory and there is just the I. Okay. The I is Atma, you, yourself. And the serpent is everything or God. And one of the basic principles of Indian philosophy is Atma is Brahman. So Atma should regard this entire world as yourself, or you are God, or God and you are one. I mean, it's a very profound way, but you can see the scale of difference between thinking, the Western thinking, the Chinese thinking, and Indian thinking. So thanks, Kevin, for bringing.
Yes, I want to speak. Give me 1 minute, maybe.
Please.
Two, I'm going to bring here.
Go ahead.
Nature. Let's see. We talk about nature. It's good to know that I need to learn more about the second nature. Your nature opposite is should be that's for the chaos, or we call it nature. In another way, as I'm thinking, and in nurture, that should be another one. That's order. That's the order we can, as human being, we consider as order.
Mhm.
Right here. In our normally our globalization so much, like even in Eastern culture, we learn a lot from Western. For example, one topic, debate,
Yes.
the two sides.
Mhm.
We always try. I'm all good. One side, another side totally against another side.
Mhm.
If I were in the middle of like, let's Sri Lanka ask, what do you learn from opponent? Single question we missed here, from president debate to other stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next up is Laura, Mike, John, and Jeff. Laura.
I was concerned when you were presenting the two sides, and you said something about order. You gave one thing, and you gave one thing to order and chaos, and you gave one thing to chaos, one thing to order, and you gave another thing to chaos, and you gave nothing else to order, and you listed a lot of things for chaos and nothing else for order. And I wasn't sure whether whether you were listing order, the things for nature order under chaos. Now I'm not completely sure.
Sure.
Okay, and that's just a little bit of misunderstanding possibly on my part, but yeah. And then I guess the other thing is if you get to this point somehow, you move on, you form a composite of that, and then you take that's your new start point, so then that becomes the new beginning. Is that your new Uroboros?
Sure. Let me go ahead and respond to the first point. So the absolutely, in this presentation, I have not focused much on order, partly because this presentation I'm focused on communicating this concept of Uroboros, because in thinking about this topic, I know Laura is not that familiar with Jordan Peterson's work. Most people think in terms of order and chaos. And a lot of Jordan Peterson's work does focus on the importance of order. And I think order is critical. It's absolutely critical. What I'm doing here is that I'm pointing out that this Uroboros is something that you have to grasp before you can grasp, and grasping that provides a sound foundation for thinking about order and chaos. And because the Uroboros includes the unknown unknown, uh, in addition to the known unknown, most of the time I was talking about chaos and not enough about order. But that was just because I was trying to bring the concept of Uroboros uh, in prominence and to give focus on that. And I will do definitely a presentation on the eye, which is, and there I will be focusing more on both order. And the thing is that I think order is better understood. Um, and so that's another reason I've not focused on it in this presentation. Next up is Mike, John, and Jeff. Mike.
Okay, couple things. This is the most profound presentation in the recent Shrikant world. And you kind of answered the question I had when you were talking to Kevin and some of the others. This picture is somewhat in the ancient Egypt world. It's in the Hindu mythology world. It's in the Renaissance alchemy world. And in the modern world. I first became familiar with this by learning about Escher's artwork and his explanations of it. One of the things that maybe you can spread some light on is were all these different views of it independently developed, or do you think they communicated and built upon each other? In particular, the Hindu world has a somewhat different representation of a big turtle sitting on the back of, within the snakes, with elephants standing on the back of the turtle, and the earth sitting on top of that, and they weave that into a story of God, creation, and causation. And can you say a few words on the significance of the turtle and the elephants in that picture, if that's universal? And I don't know that it is universal.
Yeah, I don't think it is universal, and that's not a very big part of Indian thought. I mean, Indian thought, just like the Western thought, is very large. And what I try to do is I try to just look at kind of large commonalities in Indian thought, and that's what I focus on. And I'm trying to compare that with the large commonalities in Chinese thought or large commonalities in Western thought. The second thing I would say is that in terms of actual communication between these different civilizations, I think there are two things that are going on. One which is fundamental, and that is, this is along the lines of thinking of the thinking by Carl Jung, is that when you look at mythologies of different cultures, even cultures that we know are disconnected from each other, these are kind of small tribes here and there is a lot of commonality. And that commonality is what Jung focused on. And Jordan Peterson is Jungian in this respect, that these archetypes and these patterns that they have come up with are integrated from there. So I think there is a commonality because there is a commonality of who we are as beings and how we experience things and our world. So there is that fundamental commonality, and there is some communication, but the communication has not been that much in the sense that, these three cultures, I study history and I look at these three cultures. I think that there are three people in the world. There are the Chinese, there are the Indians, and there is the West. And these three masses of people, they're very large, and they have a very long and complex civilizations, each of them. And they have been kind of islands because those Himalayan mountains are very difficult to pass, and so is the Tibetan plateau. So they have kind of developed separately. So you can see actual profound differences between the way in which people approach things. So, for example, the Chinese culture is highly visual, and there even the script is very visual. So it's like you have to know like 10,000 letters in order to read alphabet. So it's completely different, and it's kind of it's like pictographic. And some of the great thinkers in Chinese thought actually painted, and they communicated things through. So they are different in a very fundamental way, and so is India. So I think the difference is, and we are reaching a stage where we are able to access the other cultures. Now, I consider myself fortunate because I've spent half my life in India, half my life here. So I understand both these places reasonably, to some extent. I don't understand China very well. I don't have that much contact, only a little bit. But that's, I think that's what it is. So so that was a quick answer. Next up is Jeff. Jeff,
Can
go
I
ahead.
ask one short follow-up?
Go ahead, sir.
The elephants I sort of know, I've heard a lot about in the Hindu discussions. Where did the turtles come into in the Hindu?
I don't know. I don't think it is critical. I don't think the turtles are particularly great, particularly critical part of Hindu mythology.
I've heard the term that that the universe sits on the back of a turtle, and what does the turtle sit on? And then the comment was made: turtles all the way down. That the
Yeah, I
turtle sits
understand.
on another turtle.
I understand, but that's more of a joke, I think. Next up is John, followed by Jeff. John.
Yeah, fascinating talk. My question is about Uroboros, and particularly the image of the dragon eating its own tail. And one thing that occurred to me is there's something unique about that, the meaning of that diagram that I haven't really seen often. And that is the sort of the mental noogie it sort of gives you when you look at it. And I'm reminded of that that Sumerian god with the four eyes that sort of, when you look at it, it sort of makes you feel unpleasant or befuddled. And I'm just wondering if tied up in this concept of Ouroboros, which I think in this case is probably better represented by the diagram on the right, because the diagram on the left is purely a conceptual one, right?
Yes.
Is that there's something that's incomprehensible about it, right? So the unknown is something, when you try to comprehend it, it will tie you in knots. And I'm sort of reminded of like the concept of pi, right? Which is like a number that goes on forever. These things that exist in nature. And I just wanted to speak to that. Is that sort of part of what Ouroboros is? I mean, is it the befuddlement in trying to understand it is part of its meaning?
Yes and no. So first point I want to make is that Uroboros includes everything that is known. So you and I, what we are saying right now, the computer in front of me is part of Uroboros. So it includes everything that we know. So everything that is within that circle and Uroboros itself is all part of Uroboros. So it is basically the concept of reality, existence and consciousness together. Everything that is the embryonic versions of other things. So it includes the known, the known unknown, and the unknown, all of it together. So not all of it, but the crucial value of having that concept is to remember that there is an unknown unknown. It is, and I think that's the primary use of it. I mean, so it's kind of like it's a core metaphysical concept of like existence or God or whatever form you want to call it. And it's not so much as befuddlement, but one of the things that it does give you is humility of saying that, you know what, there are things that I know, but there are many things I don't know. And there are things that I know I don't know, but there is a lot more out there. So it kind of produces humility, not so much as befuddlement, because the action is actually very biological action. It is kind of feeding on itself. It is eating its tail, gathering nutrition from eating its tail, which is making it grow, and it goes like that. So it is like it is a continuation of the world which is kind of self-sustaining, and continuing by itself. So that's that. I don't know whether does that make sense to you?
Yes, somewhat. I guess I think the thing that I'm interested in is the fact that it's it's a visual, what's it called, paradox. I think there's like it seems to me there's a paradoxical nature in it, which is tied up in its meaning, that any proper representation of Ouroboros has to contain some sort of paradoxical element, because reality contains paradoxes. And so if we represent it purely in a sort of like a neat conceptual way, then we're not really representing the meaning as well as we could.
Got it. And I definitely recommend Jordan Peterson's take on this. I think it starts on page 137 or something like that in Maps of Meaning. Next up is Jeff.
Hi, Shrikant. Thought-provoking Saturday. That's what this is. So in my, in my considerations of philosophy and theology, I find one of the most challenging things to address is the question of evil. That, it's very attractive to imagine the unity of all things. I love the reconception of chaos as potential, and yet, the inhumanity of people to each other, and the potential to just blow up the entire planet, somehow has to be incorporated into the unity of all things. And so I wonder where evil fits.
Oh yeah, I mean, evil is very. It's basically you can look at it in multiple ways. All the negative things, you can look at it in multiple levels. One, you can look at things as negative things in nature itself, which is not really evil. It's just negative, that comes from nature. Evil is basically the opposite of the hero. It is somebody who is refusing to see, like Seth, who actually wants to just take over the order and rule, and is blind. Is not blind, but he is purposely evades anything about the life-giving power of Isis, of nature, of culture. So evil in this diagram and in these conceptions is essentially the opposite of the I. So if you look at the diagrams over here, let me go ahead and bring up just a second. Do I have the right? No. Okay, let's see. Where did it go? Give me a second. I'll move it around. Nope. Okay, I'm having trouble finding the right slide. Give me a second here.
Sure.
Okay. So anyways, I will describe it in words. So evil is deliberate, right? It is deliberate, and it is so it's really the opposite of Horus. It is the opposite of seeing. It is evading everything, because when somebody is doing something evil, they have signals telling them otherwise, both from order and chaos, chaos, both from culture and from nature. And they are actively evading that and actively against that. So it's definitely built in to the model itself. Jordan Peterson thinks very deeply, all these people, including, Carl Jung, and people who actually formulated these myths in the same first place. And I mean, evidence of that is that there is evil there is Set, and that's where the Satan comes from. So that's what it is. All right. Next up is Kevin.
Yes, thank you. I got to comment about John about Uroboros. I understand like the word is still second in nature. We normally talk about everything's connected. That's everything, including knowledge, include known, unknown, known, unknown, known, and four element include four and single entity. Second, about a question about Jeff brings every philosophy talk about evil. If can we have something meta philosophy, let's say on top, why evil is negative? Can we, just this meta philosophy that's it coexist? It's like evil and the hero. It's nature, the second nature. We cannot use that's we as human being, we need to make our own, let's say, make evil as evil. That's we need to think about. Yeah. My question is, why do we need evil in philosophy?
Why do we need? I don't understand the last part. What is the
Why
question?
do we need evil in philosophy? Let's
Yeah. So what I would say is that we absolutely need evil in philosophy, because it actually exists amongst people. I mean, what evil is basically, it is destruction. It is deliberate destruction of
for
order,
me,
nature, and that's what, like, for example, Seth is an example of that. If you look at so basically anything destructive is captured as that. Next up is going.
hold 2 seconds. For me, let's see, the sad is nature feeling, right? Still, we treat it if negative, we still use neutral analytic level, analyze.
Right, and this one does not. I mean, it puts positive and negative. So there is order and there is tyranny. So order can become tyranny. There is a negative part in that. The nature can be creative or destructive. So there is a positive and negative part of that. The sun can be attentive or evasive. They can create new order or they can destroy the order. So positive and negative parts are built into this model. So we don't have that much time. So let's just go ahead and do takeaways. So I'll call on people in the order in which I see them, and you can tell me what you got from it. So let's see. I'll start with, if you want to skip, you can skip, of course. Next, so I'm going to start with Brian, David, and Jeff. Brian. Brian, are you there? Okay, next up is, I'm going to go with David, Anne, and Barry. David?
Yeah, so great meetup today, Shrikant. Definitely, it's a term that I'm not familiar with, but I do like the way you've brought it and have applied it to Jordan Peterson's work, especially focusing it on helping to describe and provide a better context for the positive and the negative associated with chaos. One of the things that I got from reading his books was that chaos is not always negative, and you need to actually, to move forward in your life, you actually need to embrace chaos. You need to actually look for chaos, but it has to be the positive chaos. It's the chaos that causes you to spiral upward, and not a regressive chaos which causes you to spiral downward. So I really liked your bringing this together, tying it back to the, an Egyptian philosophy, almost like, if you want, the circle of life concept. So really great for you to put this together. I appreciate you taking the time and trying to help us get our minds around the way chaos is positive, not just always negative. So great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Barry, Jeff, and let's see who else. Mike. Barry? Okay, Barry, you need to unmute yourself. Barry may not be there. Next up is Jeff, Mike, and Kevin. Jeff?
Thank you for this time, Shrikant. I'm actually going to build on what David said. I think that that if I look at what has been the purpose of so much of the experience of my life, it has actually been seeking to transform dangerous chaos into positive potential chaos. And I guess the word potential means it can go either way. It can be potentially destructive or potentially creative and good. And so it's an interesting way of thinking about it. Wonderful. That transforming potential, from dangerous to whatever the other word should be. I'm not quite sure exactly what it should be. Life affirming, or I'd be interested to what you might suggest the other side of dangerous is.
Sure. I think creative is a good word. Next up is Mike, William, and Kevin. Mike.
Too much to digest in one session.
Thank you very much.
Lots of things, and to be continued. And thank you for an excellent presentation, thought-provoking, excellent presentation.
Thank you. Next up is William. William, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. And my big takeaway is the whole idea that the Christian representation of the Uroboros is God. And that opens up a whole new way of looking at the Bible stories. And it just kind of blows me away. And that's my big takeaway. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Next up is going to be Sharon, Tova, and Kevin. Sharon.
Okay. Yes, connecting it to the Jewish idea of God also is quite amazing. And it reminds me of something my husband, then boyfriend, gave me before we were married, a dog tag which said, "We don't know what we don't know." and that's what this ties into as well. I'm going to have to share this with him.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Next up is Tova, Kevin. Tova? Okay, next up is Kevin.
Yes, thank you, Shanka. I like your diagram a lot. It's put a different philosophical, put one diagram. It's hard, but you did it.
Wonderful.
My takeaway is we talk about everything connected, interconnect, transformation. One word, where's creativity come from? If you stay the order, it's hard to get creativity. It has to get potential from chaos. So that's actually got my question about it. We got you see 4 elements in a diagram, what's the specific elements? And so also on the title, you say chaos and two more elements. What's those elements? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Let's see. Next up is John. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. My takeaway is how valuable it is to have conceptions or representations of these different facets of reality. And it's a great gift to be able to compare these different models and discuss them and have so many different perspectives. And I think what it helps, it helps change your consciousness. Really, it really does. And I think that's really the most valuable thing, is that some people go through life, they don't have an idea that there is an unknown unknown, or they don't have an idea that there is order. Maybe they're living disorder, and that by just having, by just grappling with this, it's such a valuable exercise. So thank you for sharing, and I hope we do more of this.
Thank you, John. Next up is Laura, followed by Julie. Laura. Okay, next up.
I got it.
Go ahead.
Should I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to choose one word when you're talking about chaos and you don't want it to be the big thing. Maybe dissonance could be a word for the part of where you have some disruption, but it's not total chaos. Or maybe the words disruption might be used. The other thing is, I'm not a religious person, and I rather not. I like this. I like this discussion very much, and maybe we could change it to like total entity rather than God, is what it goes to. And these are all entities rather than. So I don't know if that's okay with your mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think those are all equivalent words.
Yeah.
They are not that different.